Hey there, my name is Cohen, and today I want to talk about the Josephson E22S. This is a medium diaphragm condenser microphone made by David Josephson of Josephson Microphones. That guy. So what's up about this microphone? This is essentially the drum close mic to end all other drum close mics. It was made in collaboration with, again, have to mention his name every video, Steve Albini and David Josephson. So Steve Albini approached David Josephson saying that, I want a condenser microphone that is easier to place on the drums. One that doesn't take up a large real estate, one that has a nice side adjust profile, and also has a really good off-axis response. They developed the microphone for a few years, and what came about is this right here. Now, compared to what you're going to see on most drum sets for close miking purposes, people tend to use dynamic microphones. That's the one that you see it being used most commonly. However, though, I guess I sort of fundamentally disagree with using dynamic microphones on the drums for a couple of reasons. One, I tend to just prefer the sound of condenser microphones in most applications in the studio environment compared to any dynamic alternatives. But I have found this to be very useful when it comes to drums in particular. I guess, extra low end and crispiness of the transient information, I tend to think is really important when it comes to capturing the drum set, when it comes to having really good low end response and having a really fast transient response. There are some dynamics that do a really good job about that, like the Biodynamic M201, but I just tend to prefer condenser microphones. Now, there is a problem when it comes to condenser microphones and exposing them to any high levels of SPL, which is that the high levels of SPL will cause condenser microphone capsules, it will cause them damage over time. It sort of causes a sort of shadowing effect on the sound of the capsule, where the prominent frequencies that the microphone was exposed to sort of burn in on the microphone's capsule, and they become very prominent in those areas. Like condenser microphones exposed to, let's say, close miking guitar cabinets or close miking snare drums, will oftentimes have a very pinched mid-range prominence, that, these changes that happen to the microphones are never for the better, So when it comes to using irreplaceable or very sensitive microphones on the drum set, let's say classics like the KM84, I think it's a little bit sort of irresponsible to expose those microphones to that level of SPL, even though they may sound really fantastic at the roll. They just aren't designed for that, But the Josephson E22S is designed specifically for that purposes of being used in high SPL applications. The output of this microphone is not too hot. It's pretty quiet, and that works in tandem with the high SPL usage of the microphone. One thing that's very useful about this microphone is that the output of it is pretty quiet. So you oftentimes don't have to engage a pad when close miking things like snare drum, toms, or close miking guitar or bass cabinets, which is really useful because a lot of times the pad on a microphone oftentimes causes a more compromised sound versus the unpadded version of it, So avoiding pads altogether is usually a very useful thing, if you're trying to get the best fidelity. While I tend to use this very often when it comes to close miking snares, close miking toms on the drum kit, it's not a one-trick pony. I've used this for many applications in the studio environment. This is a favorite of mine for close miking. We're not close miking because I don't really close mic stuff, but I tend to use this a lot for miking guitar cabinets and bass cabinets. Oftentimes, especially on the bass cabinet, I will use a darker and a brighter microphone, this one being the brighter microphone. And when it comes to having a nice, bright condenser microphone that I can close mic on a bass cabinet and not overload, very few microphones can do that. This one can, though. But this has been used by many people on other applications just beyond things that are of high SPL, you know? People use this on miking acoustic guitars very often. People often will use this when miking a piano and you can't like open the lid or don't have a lot of space to put like a big microphone. They can sneak these microphones in and still get like a really good sound. And also just a really weird like snippet of like music history. The Lord song, what's it called? Royal? Is that it? Royal? That song, that was recorded, the lead vocal with the Josephson E22S. I have no idea why it was. I have no idea why whatever recording engineer or studio that was recording Lord just had one of these things just lying around and decided, fuck it. But, you know, the vocal sounds pretty good on it, you know? And I've actually used this on a couple of my own material as background vocals, you know? It worked really well in that application, despite the very low output, you know? The system noise is really, really low on this microphone, so you can still boost it up, the gain of it a lot and not bring up a lot of like unpleasantries in the signal, you know? While this video is about this specific microphone in general, though, I do want to talk about the company, Josephson, and why I like them so much in regards to other boutique microphone manufacturers. David Josephson seems hell-bent on making microphones that solve problems that we still have in the studio or recording environment. They are not interested in doing the direction that most boutique microphone companies go in, which is trying to recreate the classics, but with less quality parts and less quality craftsmanship. You know, the companies that say that, oh, we made a microphone that is a tenth of this vintage, more well sought after microphone, and it sounds just the same. Ooh, you know, yada, 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 the scam that every generation falls for, money for nothing and chicks for free. Josephson isn't interested in that. And I really admire that, you know? And I wish more microphone companies went in that direction, you know? Because if we still have those classics and we still have them in good condition lying around, you know, well, we don't really need people remaking them, you know? You know, in a world where we do still have some of those classics lying around and they're still functioning and working, you know, I'm much more interested in companies trying to solve still existing problems in the studio environment. And this is like a perfect example of that. This microphone was specifically engineered to solve one problem in the studio environment. And as a result, it has become a modern classic. I mean, like these things, you never see them on the used marketplace because they're instantly bought up whenever they're put up, you know? And this is not a cheap microphone. This is a $1,600 microphone. And people still are like willing to spend that money on this microphone because it's that good. This is one of those examples I like to point to whenever people view people in the studio or recording world as like evangelical types, you know, or people who are stuck in the past and they're not willing to adopt or you know, change in any way or to try new things. This is a perfect example of a refutation of that point, if you will. People are willing to adopt new microphones and new recording techniques if they are of quality and if they, you know, are good, you know. Josephson's line of microphones is also like a good example of that too, because you know, like microphones like the C700A and the C700S are really unique and interesting microphones that have a lot of creative potential with like the ability to be able to change the polarity pattern after the fact, after you recorded it, you know? It's a wild concept. But also they're like their flagship model, I forget the number of it though, where you are able to change the microphone's characteristics of sound with its little like preamp with like the sun and the moon dial, you know? Is super, super, super interesting. I think that's really cool. People making like new designs and doing new things, you know, in the field. They also do have a leg up on the competition because Josephson's probably like the second best capsule manufacturer currently doing it right now, you know? Third best? Second best? Maybe, I don't know. Their products though, I just tend to adore, you know? My favorite, of course, being the E22S. I am going to do some test recordings of mostly the drums, showing how it compares to other condenser microphones, kind of in the same category. I'll be using an Oktava MK012 with a 10 dB pad with the cardioid capsule to make some comparisons on snare drum and on the toms as well. Also, it's a durability. This microphone is built like a tank. This thing is incredibly tough. And that also makes it a better candidate for, miking the drums because of, you don't want a very sensitive KM84 being busted because the drummer accidentally whacked it with their stick, Whereas this one has a nice brass housing on it that protects the capsule from any damage like that, Like I personally have whacked it, and I think it's been whacked in a couple sessions as well. But it's never damaged the microphone at all. Which is a really good thing. The stray drumstick never caused any actual damage to these microphones, which is always a plus. The Oktavas, I don't think they would. I don't think they would survive that well. And I guess that wraps up this video. I hope everyone watching this has a wonderful day. All right, take care.